So we've gone over the 5 pentatonic boxes, and we've gone over the connecting shapes. Now it's time to talk a little bit about the theory. If you haven't seen the videos on the pentatonic boxes or the connecting shapes, those videos are going to be available in the description. To understand the theory behind the pentatonic scale, it's definitely a good idea to have kind of a pretty solid grasp on keys. So I did a video on key signatures that's available up here. Without getting too into the weeds of the number system and key signatures, the biggest concept that we really need to grasp for now is understanding the concept of relative major and minor. In both the 5 pentatonic box video and the connecting shape video, I said we're in the key of A minor or C major. Now, if you don't know anything about music theory, you might be thinking to yourself, how can one scale or how can one box that I'm learning relate to both major and minor? That's where the concept of relative major and minor come in. So the key of A minor is the relative minor to the key of C major, and the key of C major is the relative major to the key of A minor. If you were to lay out the key of C major and play all the notes of C major but start on the note A, you'd be playing an A minor scale. And if you were to lay out all the notes of the key of A minor and you start on C, you guessed it, you'd be playing a C major scale. Both scales are exactly the same. The only difference is the point at which you're starting. So now you might be thinking to yourself, oh God, now I have to memorize the relative major to every minor key, and vice versa, I have to memorize the relative minor to every major key. Luckily, there's a really simple trick for it. So this trick is gonna really depend on a pretty firm grasp on the notes on the E string. So if you're shaky with your fretboard knowledge, I did a video on fretboard knowledge available up here. So the trick is really simple. If you wanna play a minor pentatonic scale, find the root note of that scale with your index finger on the low E string and play that first pentatonic box position. For example, let's do the key of C minor. So first I'm going to loop some chords in the key of C minor for you to be able to hear the context of the scale against a chord progression. So now I want to find C with my index finger on the low E string, it's on the 8th fret, and I'm going to play that first box. So you'll notice none of the notes really clashed with that chord progression, and that's because that chord progression is in the key of C minor and we just played the C minor pentatonic scale. So now we can take that scale, and if we know all the boxes, we can start crafting a solo. You get the idea. So now we know where to find our minor pentatonic scale. We take our index finger, we find our root note, and then we play the first box. So what if you want to play a major pentatonic scale? This is really simple as well. Now we're going to take our pinky and find the root note of the scale. So let's take D for example. I'm going to loop a chord progression in the key of D, just like a 2-5-1, really common. So if I find D with my pinky on the low E string, that's going to be kind of like my starting note, and I'm still going to play that first position. So my index would be on the 7th fret of the low E string, my pinky on 10, and if I play through it, you'll hear that nothing really clashes. So from there, figuring out where all of the other pentatonic boxes and shapes in relation to that key, that's going to take a little bit of heavy lifting on your part, but you can use those connecting shapes to kind of get an idea of where everything else should fall. So if we're in the key of D major, grab D with your pinky, and then you have your first shape. Now that second box starts on the second note, so that's going to start on D as well. You're going to grab your middle finger on that 10th fret. And then the next note starts your next shape. so on and so forth. You know the boxes and you know the connecting shapes. Now it's just a matter of really being able to kind of get comfortable jumping between those boxes and knowing exactly where those boxes fall in relation to that first box. Now this is a relatively simple way to look at it, but you're 90% of the way there if you can memorize those boxes and really start to feel comfortable with exactly how far each of those boxes are apart from each other. And it might make it a little easier to know those connecting shapes because they're literally connected with those shapes. There are definitely other ways to figure out where the pentatonic boxes lie. For example, for me, I really like to use the number system. I know that the third pentatonic box, thinking back to the key of D major or B minor, I know that the third pentatonic box lands on the 4 of B minor. So if you know the number system, the 4 of B minor is E. So I was able to find E and get to it a little quicker than having to kind of go through it in a linear fashion where I see that this is my first note and this is my second note and then the second note of that second box. It will get a little confusing in that regard, but like I said, it's a simple way to look at it, and with all the videos on my channel, you should be about 90% of the way to being able to put together all those pieces on your own. With that being said, if you're interested in learning more about the number system, definitely be sure to subscribe to my channel because I have more of those videos in the pipeline. If you found this video to be helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks for sticking around.